A female doctor saves a man's life. When he wakes up, he reveals himself to be furious and sexist. A woman like you should know her place and not meddle where she wasn't called, he snaps. Now, she not only fights to heal his body, but also to uncover the layers of a man scarred by pain and bitterness. Zara woke up to the shrill sound of the alarm clock, feeling the weight of another night shift at the hospital. Rubbing her eyes, the doctor got up and walked to the window, observing the city that was beginning to wake up. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, announcing a new day. As she prepared for work, she reflected on her career. At 35, she had earned respect and admiration in her field. Her dedication and empathy were recognized by colleagues and patients. However, she sometimes wondered if she was doing enough, if she was truly making a difference in people's lives. These doubts accompanied her as she left her apartment. In the hallway, she encountered Henrique, her neighbor on the same floor. As always, he greeted her with a warm smile and a few kind words. "Good morning, Dr. Zara. Ready to save more lives today?" He was a man in his 50s, always well-dressed and impeccably groomed. His affable and polite manner made him a favorite among everyone in the building. Zara returned the greeting with a tired but sincere smile. "Good morning, Henrique. I do what I can, as always." As they descended together in the elevator, she couldn't help but notice how he always seemed to be in good spirits, as if nothing in the world could shake his happiness. The day at the hospital proceeded as usual, with the doctor attending to patients, making rounds, and dealing with emergencies. In the late afternoon, just as she was getting ready to leave, an urgent call echoed through the corridors. A patient had arrived in critical condition, a victim of an intentional overdose. Rushing to the emergency room, her heart raced as she recognized the patient's face. It was Henrique, her always smiling neighbor. Now he lay unconscious, his pale skin contrasting with the white hospital sheets. Zara immediately took command of the situation, shouting orders to the team as she fought to stabilize him. The following hours were an intense battle against time. The team and the doctor worked tirelessly, performing procedures, administering medications, and monitoring Henrique's vital signs. The tension in the room was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, after what seemed like an endless struggle, the patient was stabilized. Zara sighed with relief, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had managed to save the life of her neighbor, but questions began to arise in her mind. How could someone who always seemed so happy and content with life reach this point? In the days that followed, the doctor made regular visits to Henrique's room, anxiously waiting for him to wake up. When he finally opened his eyes, his reaction was nothing like what she expected. Seeing Zara by his bedside, Henrique frowned, his face twisting into an expression of disdain. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice hoarse and loaded with bitterness. Zara, caught off guard, stammered for a moment before responding. I'm your doctor, Henrique. I'm here to see how you are." Henrique let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Oh, sure. The heroine who saved the day, right? Well, nobody asked for your help. You should have left me alone." His words hit the doctor like a punch to the stomach. She tried to maintain her composure, reminding herself of her professional training. "Henrique, I understand that you may be confused and frustrated, but—" "Confused? Frustrated?" Henrique interrupted her, his voice rising in tone. "You don't understand anything, doctor. A woman like you should know her place and not meddle where she's not called." Zara was stunned by the drastic change in her neighbor's behavior. The kind, smiling man she knew had disappeared, replaced by someone bitter and hostile. Despite the shock and hurt caused by his words, she maintained her professional demeanor. "Mr. Henrique, I am here as your doctor. My duty is to care for your health and well-being. If there is something that is bothering you, we can talk about it in a civilized manner." He just turned his face away, completely ignoring her. The doctor, realizing she wouldn't get anything more at that moment, left the room with a heavy heart. As she walked through the hospital corridors, her mind buzzed with questions. What could have caused such a drastic change in Henrique? How could someone who seemed so happy and fulfilled hide so much bitterness? In the days that followed, Zara continued her visits to her neighbour, always being received with coldness and hostility. She strove to maintain a professional attitude, but she couldn't deny that his harsh words affected her. On one of those days, while checking his vital signs, she decided to try a different approach. "You know, Henrique," she began with a gentle tone, "I never imagined you were going through something so difficult. Your strength has always impressed me." For a brief moment, the doctor saw something pass through his eyes, a shadow of vulnerability, perhaps. But soon his expression hardened again. "Appearances can be deceiving, can't they, Doctor?" he replied with a bitter smile. "No one really wants to know how we are. It's easier to smile and pretend everything is fine." Those words touched Zara deeply. She realized that there was much more to Henrique's story than she could imagine. Determined to understand better, she began to discreetly ask other hospital staff and even some neighbors in the building. Through these conversations, she discovered the truth behind his smile. A few years earlier, Henrique had lost his wife, Elisa, to a sudden illness. Since then, he had emotionally isolated himself, maintaining only a facade of happiness for the outside world. Armed with this knowledge, the doctor decided to approach Henrique in a different way. During one of her visits, she sat next to his bed, and instead of asking routine questions, she simply said, "Despite anything, I want you to know that regardless of what you're going through, you can count on me. I can't imagine how you might be hurting." She tried to show as much humanity as possible there. She felt she had to say something or try to console him in some way. Henrique looked at her, surprised. For a moment, his mask of hostility fell, revealing a deeply wounded man. "You have no idea how much it hurts," he murmured, his voice slightly breaking. In that instant, something changed between them. Zara was no longer just the intrusive doctor, but someone who showed genuine concern. Gradually, he began to open up. Henrique talked about Elisa, about how her death had left him completely lost. "After she was gone, I just didn't know how to go on," he confessed. Smiling and pretending everything was fine seemed easier than facing reality. The doctor listened attentively, offering words of comfort when necessary, but mainly giving Henrique the space to express his feelings that had been repressed for so long. She realized that her role there went beyond taking care of her neighbor's physical health. She was helping him to start an emotional healing process. The conversations between the two became more frequent and profound. He needed to remain under observation until his condition stabilized after the incident. Henrique shared stories about his life with Elisa, about the dreams they had together, and how everything seemed to have lost its meaning after her departure. Zara, in turn, talked about her own experiences with loss and how she had learned to deal with grief in her profession. As the days passed, a subtle change began to occur in the man. The initial hostility gave way to silent gratitude. Henrique still had moments of bitterness, but now he was more willing to confront his feelings rather than hide them. The doctor also found herself transformed by this experience. She began to look at her patients through different eyes, always wondering what untold stories might be behind every smile or expression of pain. Her empathy, already a striking characteristic, deepened even further. When the time came for Henrique to be discharged, he was visibly different from the man who had arrived at the hospital. There was still a long road ahead, but now he seemed more willing to face it. "Thank you, Zara," he said, using her first name for the first time. "Not just for saving my life, but for helping me see that there are still reasons to live it." Zara smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "You did the hard work. I was just here to listen." In the weeks that followed, the doctor continued to monitor her neighbour's progress. She encouraged Henrique to seek professional help to deal with his grief and depression, and was pleased to know that he had started attending a support group for people who have lost loved ones. One day, while walking through the park near her building, she spotted Henrique sitting on a bench watching the children play. She approached hesitantly, unsure if her presence would be welcome outside the hospital environment. "Can I sit down?" she asked. The man looked at her and nodded with a small smile. Of course, doctor. Or should I say, neighbour? Zara sat down, relieved by the friendly reception. How are you? He sighed deeply before answering. Every day is a struggle, to be honest. But I'm learning to live again, one step at a time. They remained silent for a few moments, watching the life around them. Then, Henrique spoke again. You know, Zara, I never properly apologized for the way I treated you in the hospital. I was in a very dark place and I took out all the anger I felt towards the world on you. I'm sorry for that. The doctor felt her eyes fill with tears. There's no need to apologize. I understand. What's important is that you're moving forward. Henrique nodded, a sad smile playing on his lips. Elisa always said that life is too precious to be wasted on bitterness. I think I'm finally beginning to understand what she meant. In that moment, sitting in the park, they were no longer just doctor and patient or distant neighbours. They were two people who had learned valuable lessons about life, loss, and the importance of compassion. Zara looked at Henrique and saw not only the man she had physically saved, but someone who was slowly finding his way back to life. And in this process, the doctor herself had been transformed, becoming not only a better professional, but a more understanding and empathetic person. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, the doctor reflected on how a simple act of saving a life had triggered a series of events that changed both her and Henrique. She realized that sometimes the act of healing goes far beyond the physical. Sometimes it involves healing the heart and soul. And there, in that park, with the sound of children's laughter in the background and the gentle afternoon breeze caressing their faces, they shared a moment of mutual understanding. They had embarked on an unexpected journey of healing and growth, a journey that reminded them of the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of empathy and compassion. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.